Whispers from the Shadows, a visit to the haunted homestead. The wind howled through the ancient trees as Jane's car approached the countryside. She had received a letter from her distant relatives, the Allendales, inviting her to their ancestral homestead for a long overdue visit. The prospect of spending time in the serene countryside excited her, and she was eager to catch up with her family's history. But as she navigated the twisting roads that led to the Allendale estate, an unshakable feeling of unease settled in the pit of her stomach. The estate emerged from the darkness like a forgotten memory. The house, a sprawling mansion that seemed to have stood there for centuries, was both beautiful and eerie. Its once grand facade was now marred by the passage of time, with ivy snaking up the walls and windows long devoid of life. The garden, once vibrant and lush, had fallen into a state of disarray, the flowers choking under the weight of neglect. As Jane stepped out of her car, she was greeted by her relatives, a somber group of people who bore a striking resemblance to faded photographs she had seen in her family album. They welcomed her with forced smiles and led her into the dimly lit foyer. The air was heavy with the scent of dampness and decay, and the flickering candles cast eerie shadows on the walls. Over dinner, the conversation turned to the family's history. The Allendales recounted tales of their ancestors, their triumphs and tragedies, and the secrets that had been passed down through generations. Jane listened intently, her fascination battling with the unsettling feeling that something was amiss. As the night deepened, the Allendales invited Jane to explore the house. They spoke of a hidden library rumored to contain journals and diaries dating back centuries. Despite her apprehension, Jane couldn't resist the allure of uncovering her family's past. She followed her relatives through corridors that seemed to stretch endlessly, their footsteps echoing in the silence. The library was a realm frozen in time. Dust-covered tomes lined the shelves, their spines bearing titles that hinted at arcane knowledge. Jane's fingers brushed over the leather-bound volumes, her curiosity growing with every touch. In a far corner, she discovered an ornate journal, its pages brittle with age. As she opened it, she was immediately captivated by the elegant script that chronicled the lives of her ancestors. Hours slipped by as Jane immersed herself in the stories of those who had come before her. But as she turned the pages, she began to notice a recurring theme: tales of tragedy, of lives cut short, and of mysterious disappearances. The further she delved, the more uneasy she became. The stories seemed to speak of a curse that had plagued the Allendale family for generations, a curse that brought misfortune and darkness to their lives. A sudden chill swept through the library, extinguishing the candles and plunging the room into darkness. Panic surged within Jane as she struggled to light her phone's flashlight. When the feeble light pierced the blackness, she found herself alone. Her relatives were gone, as though they had vanished into thin air. Fear gripped Jane's heart as she stumbled through the corridors, her footsteps echoing in the emptiness. Whispers seemed to emanate from the walls, faint murmurs that carried promises of doom. She finally reached the main hall, only to be met by a ghastly sight. Her relatives stood in a circle, their faces contorted in anguish, their eyes vacant and hollow. Jane's voice trembled as she called out to them, but they remained motionless, as if trapped in a trance. Desperation gave her the strength to step forward, to break the circle that seemed to bind them. As her fingers brushed against her aunt's hand, a bone-chilling wind filled the hall, extinguishing the candles that lined the walls. The darkness seemed to come alive, swirling around them like a malevolent force. In that moment, Jane understood the truth. The curse that had haunted her family for generations was very real, a maleficent presence that fed on their sorrow and despair. She realized that she had unwittingly become a part of this sinister tapestry, a pawn in a game of shadows and suffering every ounce of courage. Jane began to recite an incantation she had stumbled upon in one of the ancient journals. Her voice wavered, but she pressed on, her determination fueled by the love for her family and the will to break free from the curse's grip. As her words filled the air, a blinding light erupted. Banishing the darkness that had plagued the light subsided, Jane found herself standing alone in the hall. The curse had been lifted, and her relatives were nowhere to be seen. The mansion was eerily quiet, as though it held its breath in the wake of the supernatural battle that had unfolded. With a heavy heart, Jane knew that her family's history was both a gift and a burden, a legacy of darkness.